Listening right now, I promise you, this will be hell. Well, hello. This is Mark Simone here for Lynn Samuels. Lynn is off tonight, and she's doing another one of those big network shows tomorrow. Yeah, she has no time for us locals anymore. Yes, those big network broadcasts. Actually, this one you'll be able to hear Sunday evening. Anyway, I'll tell you more about that a little later. So I'll be here for Lynn tonight, and we've got lots of things to discuss, lots of things to talk about. That's interesting, that story on the news about, on these airplanes now. First there were the safety problems. Now people are terrified of bombs, of terrorists, hijackings. But I'll tell you what I did. Because, I was always afraid of this, but I read that the odds of having a bomb on the plane that you're on are 1,000,000 to 1. And then I read the odds of having 2 bombs on the plane that you're on are 200 trillion to 1. So what I do is whenever I fly, I carry a bomb with me. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we've got lots of things to discuss tonight. This is one of the final programs of 1994. So besides all of the hot topics we'll be discussing, throughout the night, if you want to call up and discuss what you feel were the best and the worst of 1994, the best film of the year, the worst film of the year, the worst television show of the year, the most interesting person of 1994, the worst person of 1994, or somebody that passed away in 1994 that you want to talk about. So we'll kind of review the year throughout the program tonight. We've got lots of other things to discuss, lots of mail. This is great. Look at all this fan mail here. I like people that address letters like this. Like if you want to write to somebody here, you just put WABC, 2 Penn Plaza, New York, 10121. But then you get people like this who says, Mark Simone, care of WABC, Talk Radio 77 AM, Talk Radio New York, 2 Penn Plaza, 17th floor, New York. I'm surprised you didn't put a description of me on the envelope. This woman takes no chances with this postman. Then she writes a long letter. She's a big fan of Lynn's, and she says she likes when I fill in. And then at the end she says, are you and Lynn married? What? Of course not. No, why do you think we get along? No, Lynn and I are not married. Lynn is not married to anybody, as far as we know. But that's, it's true. When you see a couple in love, 2 people that are so in love, and then when they're married, things slowly change, and then when they're divorced, it's the difference is startling. And what brought this up is I'm reading this interview with Roseanne, because I remember when she was with Tom Arnold, how she had his name tattooed on her rear end? And she talked about him with such love. And if you dared to even make a joke about Tom Arnold, the tears would stream down her face because he was simply the most wonderful human being that ever lived. Well, in this interview today, she says that he is, quote, the most vile human being that ever walked the face of the earth. She actually says that he probably would murder her, and that when she thought he was going to come see her, she had 8 bodyguards standing by. She actually thinks he's a deranged psychomaniac. So, if you ever want to see contrast, talk to 2 people when they're married and then about a day after the divorce. Well, tonight we're going to talk about, among other things, President Clinton. Look at this big headline in today's paper. Clinton announces he'll try again for the White House in 96. Oh, that's good news. That's good news. I was afraid we'd lose him. Well, thank God we have great dedicated public servants like Bill Clinton to run again in 96. And look at this subheadline here. He says, he hopes Hillary will remain an activist. Oh, that's good. We need Hillary. Actually, we do here at this radio station. If it weren't for Hillary, I don't think talk radio would be as popular as it is, because if it weren't for Hillary, I don't think Americans would be as angry as they are. And there are some that say, why do you keep picking on Hillary? Why do you keep mentioning her? She's faded into the background. She's back in the kitchen baking where she belongs. And let's hope she bakes better than she governs. Well, the reason we keep picking on her is, I know she's faded away and left us alone, but there's always that chance she may come back again and haunt us. There's always that chance. A lot of people think if they go away for a while, they can pop back up in your lives and make a comeback. So you got to keep your eye on her. She's still there, out there as a threat to this country. Did you see Newt Gingrich last night? hosting Boys Town. I thought, I mean, first of all, I hadn't seen the movie in years. It is kind of a silly movie. It's like a dead-end kids movie with Spencer Tracy acting real serious all through it. But it's a fun movie. And I thought Newt Gingrich was terrific just as a host of a movie on television. That ought to be a regular thing. You know, they ought to have different senators do it. In fact, I think I understand they talked to Ted Kennedy. They want him to host Bridge Too Far. You knew that was coming, didn't you? Well, that's not the movie. They actually want him to host Lost Weekend. Well, anyway, I thought it was terrific. Maybe you disagree. The Paula Jones case is fascinating in a way because here is this weird-looking, dopey-looking woman who looks like she stumbled out of a trailer park somewhere with this ridiculous lawsuit. I mean, you know, maybe there's some truth in it, but the point is it's a ridiculous sort of waste of time for everybody. Yet, in the middle of all this, she brings up some interesting legal and constitutional questions. Some very interesting questions about whether a president can be sued civilly, or whether that should be allowed. And there have been attempts at this before. I guess the last case was Richard Nixon, but that was over his conduct in office. And it was ruled that you can't sue a president civilly over his conduct in office. But this is interesting because it's his conduct before he was in office. And, but, you know, both sides won and lost in this case. It was ruled that Paula Jones has to wait till after he's out of office. But in the meantime, she can take depositions, and her attorneys can interview the president, so that, you know, with the passage of time, they don't have to worry about people's memories fading or witnesses disappearing. Now, this is interesting. Jones has accused, I can read you this from the New York Times, but it's much more, much livelier if I read it to you from the New York Post. They don't leave out any juicy details. It says, Jones has accused Clinton of dropping his trousers and asking for oral sex in a Little Rock hotel room in 1991 when he was Arkansas's governor and she was a junior state employee. I'm not the biggest fan of Bill Clinton, and I know that he is a lecherous sort of guy. I have a lot of personal evidence of this, which I won't go into, but I don't believe that he did what she claims he did. Maybe he was a little flirtatious, and maybe he hinted at something, but to do it in as bold a way as she claims, I honestly don't believe that. That's what happened. Jones claims she can identify distinguishing features of Clinton's genitals. She has submitted a sworn but sealed statement describing those characteristics. Now, I hate to get too technical here or too graphic, but if you were married to a guy for 30 years, I don't think you could describe his genitals. I don't see how that's possible. Distinguishing characteristics, they're sealed. We'll never know what they were. But I defy Hillary to describe his genitals. This is a ridiculous thing to introduce into a case. Asked if they will seek an examination of Clinton's genitals, Paula Jones's lawyers said that's part of the allegation and complaint. We expect to gather proof on that issue. It's amazing. Well, can you imagine if this stuff went on during Perry Mason's day? Can you imagine Perry sending that, remember, who was that investigator? Paul Drake? Is that was his name? Imagine Perry sending Paul out to investigate somebody's... Well, anyway, a Clinton lawyer who was working on the case said they will appeal parts of the judge's ruling, especially the part that allows the taking of sworn testimony. As I said before, the Supreme Court has ruled that presidents are immune from lawsuits for their official acts, but they've never ruled on a request for something like this, where it's for something done before the president took office. And Clinton, complaining that he lacks the personal financial resources to defend himself against this lawsuit, of course, set up a controversial legal defense fund to raise private contributions. Gee, you think you'd just send Hillary back into that commodities market and raise some cash back?
With the shooting that took place at that family planning center in Boston today, it's a good thing that you're sitting in that chair tonight, because at about this time now, we'd be hearing that all Republicans and conservatives are all like that guy who shot up that place, and that's what we're in for come January, with the exaggerations. from the left and the scare tactics.
Well, I did hear some crazy woman on the news tonight blaming conservatives and saying they've got to stop this rhetoric. It's this rhetoric that fires people up. Well, of course, when it comes to that sort of rhetoric designed to rile people up, nobody's more guilty of that than the liberals. Look what they've done to Newt Gingrich. Not that I'm defending him, but he certainly didn't deserve to be demonized the way that he was. In fact, some of that liberal rhetoric probably led to some death threats against Gingrich.
Yeah, well, Frank Lutz, who's a Republican pollster, took a poll of Virginia voters recently, and by 54 to 25%, the voters fear liberals more than conservatives. Yet the liberals will never admit that their time has passed. And Bill Clinton said a couple of days ago when he announced that he was going to rerun for office, people only know what they've been told. Now, you see, once again, the arrogance of the liberal is exposed. We don't know anything unless we're told. We don't do any reading. We can't decipher things that happen around us for ourselves. This is the type of, this is why the Democrats and the liberals were crushed on November 8th. And that's why I'm glad Bill Clinton will run for office again, because the Democrats are going to take it on the chin again. And as far as so-called poor in America, the other fight tactic...
What was that phrase? The so-called poor?
Yeah. There are no real
the
poor. The
so-called poor. You mean just to fool us they're wearing those rags and sleeping in gutters?
Yeah, well, no, it's people white people...
What do you mean the so-called poor?
The average intake, according to the 1990 census, the average intake of protein, minerals, and vitamins is nearly the same for poor and middle-class children. Poor children today are, quote, in fact, supernourished.
Hey, John.
Growing up to be taller and 10
as Ed
pounds
Koch would say, stop. Listen, John, I'm sure you're how does he say it?
Stop.
Yeah, it works when he does it. I'm sure you're a nice guy, and you always start off great. But then there's a line that you always kind of step over, and you always go too far sometimes with these arguments.
It's called a knockout punch.
No, it's called swinging so hard you miss and fall over.
No, this is the 1990 census, Mark.
Well, all right.
So-called poor children grow up to be...
You started off there with what
heavier.
sounded like it was going to be a great point, and now we're talking about protein and minerals, and I lost you completely.
But it's all wrapped in together. Don't believe what liberals who try to frighten everybody tell you.
All right, John. Well, that's a good note to end on.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling. Mark?
Hi, how you doing?
Let me check. Not bad.
I was just listening. I really don't listen, but I had a friend call me and tell me to listen to the previous Jackie Mason that was just on.
Yes.
And I'd really like to continue listening about the topic they were talking about the marijuana. And I think there's a lot of people...
I feel 3 hours didn't do it justice. Let's talk about it some more.
No, it didn't. Well, I didn't get to listen the whole 3 hours, but it was just so...
How long have you been using marijuana?
About 10 years.
And what do you use it for?
For enjoyment.
And I've never really used it. I hate to sound like Bill Clinton, but I've never really used marijuana. What sort of enjoyment do you get from it?
Well, it's just to relax, and or have a good time. I'm generally at home. I'm not out driving or anything, but it's just to relax.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of other ways to relax. Why marijuana?
Well, that's one of the ways that I choose to do.
And where do you buy this marijuana?
Well, it's around.
Where do you, without naming names or places, where do you buy it?
There's anybody.
When you suddenly want some, do you just know who to call and ask?
Yeah, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Uh-huh.
You don't always know. I don't always know where to get it, but sometimes I come across it and sometimes I don't.
Mm-hmm. So what are you saying? There should be legalized?
I think it should be. I don't think people understand how it is. There's a bad rap on it. It's not like people think at all. It's just like they were saying on the previous show how, listen, Bill Clinton, he can't tell me he hasn't inhaled. There's no way. And Newt, he just confessed to doing it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well,
I do know a lot of people that do smoke marijuana. In fact, there are a lot of famous people, especially entertainers, who smoke marijuana, whose names would shock you. They're not younger people. They're older entertainers.
No one would shock me.
No, I mean,
George
they're like
Burns.
Well, it's not George Burns, but people of that generation. There are many I know who smoke marijuana. Listen, there are many singers whose records used to be on the hit parade
and they're not so bad, are they?
No, who've been smoking all their lives. So
they haven't,
I haven't seen marijuana really do a lot of damage to anybody. I don't think drugs should be legalized. Marijuana, I don't know.
Drugs should either, but I think people misunderstand marijuana, and
But let's be honest. As somebody that wants to use marijuana like yourself, you really don't have any trouble getting it, do you?
no,
So what's the difference?
it's a shame when you have to
But
worry
really,
about your job.
what's the difference? If it were legalized, the price would probably go up.
Yeah, but if you smoke occasionally, like on the weekend,
Mhm.
and then you're threatened at work by having a test done, and you don't do it at your work, you don't do it before you go to work. I mean, there's plenty of people that do it on the weekend just as a
Yeah, but on the other
Friday
hand, you can't smoke a cigarette at your job anymore. I mean, look at these poor people standing out in front of office buildings everywhere smoking cigarettes. It is a funny sight now. In front of every skyscraper, they try to put the most beautiful front in the building, and they pay a fortune for some big sculpture in front of the building. And now there's like 500 people blocking it, smoking cigarettes. The big sculpture is now just a huge ashtray.
That's kind of fading out, though.
Oh no! Even in the freezing winter weather, there are people standing out there like criminals, hiding out there smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, it's a shame they're forced to do that.
Now, when you call somebody to their office and they say he's away from his desk, they'll just put a phone down there on the sidewalk where all those people are smoking.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Sue. Thanks for calling. Good luck to you. We'll get back to the phones in just a second. This is Mark Simone here for Lynn Samuels. How you doing, Ray?
I'm doing fine. Hey, listen, Mark. I am a little concerned. I am not, what should I say, your ilk. That's not the right word because you're not ilk. But, I'm afraid that the ultra-conservative, extreme conservatives are taking over the media. They're taking over the airwaves.
I see myself as kind of being in the middle here. I'm not...
Well, I listen to you, and you seem to apologize for Newt Gingrich.
No, I don't apologize for Newt Gingrich. I'm not...
He was doing fine before. He only took $1 for something. Is that right?
No. That's not all what I said. I said...
I'm listening.
Well, I wouldn't trust your ears, but what I said was, I said it's an amazing thing that he did. If you had $4.5 million, would you be willing to give it back and just bet it all on your book
my
selling?
point is, what has the man done to earn $4.5 million for a book? He is a...
Well, wait. I know you don't like Newt Gingrich. Do you want to just rant and rave, or do you want to really logically...
No.
Do you want to really logically...
Think about him.
Now, just stop for a minute. Do you want to really logically look at that question?
Go ahead.
Let's say you're a publisher. Now, publishers don't throw money away that easily.
Yeah.
They know exactly what a book can make.
Yeah.
They're pretty shrewd when it comes to knowing how much a book is worth. Now, let's look at Rush Limbaugh's book.
Yeah.
You know how many millions and millions and millions and millions were made on that book?
But why? Why?
Well, that's not our business. The point is...
I know.
The point is, if you're in business, the publishing business... Well, this guy is so upset about this. It's just breaking his heart. It's like I'm talking about a nuclear accident. It's just tearing his heart apart. Yeah. Listen to me. These books sell like crazy. You remember Nixon... you think of Nixon in his last few years writing these books, you think it was just for his vanity. He had 8 bestsellers.
Yeah.
You know that Margaret Thatcher book sold like crazy. Reagan's book sold like crazy. Dan Quayle's book is in its 6th printing.
I bought the Haldeman Diaries and I forgot it. I put it away. I read pages.
Of course, it doesn't matter what you bought or what I bought. That's not the point. The point is what'll sell. These books by conservatives sell like crazy, and they make fortunes. And that's why a number of publishers bid for Newt Gingrich's service.
Yeah, well,
if they got him to write that book for $4.5 million, that's a bargain. I don't want to get into what Rush Limbaugh gets for a book, but it's a heck of a lot more than that. Reagan got $7 million for his book. Margaret Thatcher, who they weren't even sure would do that well in this country. Margaret Thatcher got $4.5 million in advance.
The only thing that bothers me, I hear you people talk about the liberal media, meaning the newspapers. But the extreme conservatives have taken over.
Well, now, wait, let me stop you there. I hate to confuse you with a lot of facts here.
Go ahead.
But let's go through the media. Let's start with newspapers.
Yeah.
I would say 97% of everybody involved in every newspaper in America is an extreme liberal. Let's take...
What do you mean by extreme?
Well, that's a funny...
the word that you...
In other words, not a moderate Ed Koch sort of a liberal, but a liberal sort of a liberal.
New York Times?
Oh, definitely. Extreme liberals.
I think they print it fairly, you see?
Well, of course you do, because you agree with them. No, but let's just and remember, I know a lot of these people.
I don't want to take too much of your time
but forget what they write. I happen to know a lot of these people in all these newspapers. I know what they feel personally.
Yeah.
And you can take my word for it, about 97% are very, very liberal in newspapers.
Well, why are they liberal on the newspapers and not on the airwaves?
Let me finish. Television, I would say... these are just guesses. I would say 87% very, very liberal. All the people involved in television, from producers to anchor people.
So.
Well, I'm just telling you.
I agree. Now,
let's go to publishing.
What about radios?
Radio, well, first you have to remember that the most radio listening is not done to these talk stations. You know, this is maybe, I don't know, 10%
I'm
of
not talking about FM.
Well, but you said radio. Maybe only 10% of the listening in radio is done to these talk stations. 90% is to those loud, noisy FM stations, which, of course, are all very liberal.
Yeah. Well, that I don't know because I never listen to FM. I'm sorry.
Talk stations. Let's take this one, for instance. Let's take this station. I would consider LYNN a little liberal.
You would?
Sure, I think he would, too.
How about Bob Grant?
Bob Grant I would consider a conservative.
And how about, what the hell's the other guy, Jay...
Well, now, wait. Let's just do it in order. Let's start with Lionel. I would consider him a liberal. Dennis Prager I would consider kind of in the middle there. Ed Koch calls himself a liberal with sanity. Rush I would consider a conservative. Bob Grant I would consider a conservative. LYNN I would consider liberal.
Would you consider them ultra-conservative, extreme conservative, like extreme liberal?
No, to me, when you say those kind of words, I picture Jesse Helms.
Well, we talk about extreme liberals.
Well, I certainly wouldn't consider Lionel that. And to be honest, I wouldn't consider LYNN that either.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm not going to keep you much longer.
You know, but
I just feel that talk radio is ultra-conservative, extreme ultra, you know? That's it.
Well, anybody that disagrees with you is extreme ultra-conservative.
Yeah. Hey, it's good talking to you, Mark. I'm going to hang up now.
All right.
Right, bye now.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for calling, Ray.
Right.
Boy, it's, you know things are going well when the caller tells you he has to go. Hello, Jane.
Hello. Hello, Mark.
Yes, Jane.
You were just talking about man's inhumanity to man. I think the most inhumane thing that's happening in this country and has been for more than the last 20 years is the abortion thing. Because
You mean people performing abortions?
I mean the preborn child itself being denied the right to life and its life being taken in such an inhumane way. Abortion is a terrible procedure. And these girls that have abortions, they don't even know what they're in for, and some of them don't even.
Well, you know, you say these girls. There are many women who you would.
I know, but there's girls and women, and you don't hear about what happens to a lot of them because their families are too ashamed to bring it up.
Yes, but on the other hand, there are women who are considered to be among the most intelligent women on the face of the earth, and older, very mature women who also have abortions. So you're making it sound like just young, naive girls would do it.
Oh, well, if they're so smart, I don't see how they could be having an abortion. But anyway, could I say my part? I just wanted to say that before, I just want to say I'm very distressed about the shootings at the abortion clinic. I'm against violence all the way, you know. About wars, I don't know how I feel about that, except...
You're not sure how you feel about war. You mean you might be for it.
We have a right to defend ourselves, though.
All right, Jane.
And I don't want to get off on that.
Jane, I thank you for calling. Jane is against violence. There is a controversial position, huh? Let's say hello to Pete in New Jersey. Hello, Pete.
Hello, Mark.
Yes, Pete.
I have two things that I heard in 1994 that made me mad as hell.
Go ahead, Pete.
And I can't open the window and yell out, so I want to tell you. The first one is when I hear liberals discussing arguments about illegal immigration. They come up with, this is a nation of immigrants, and everyone's supposed to shut up and allow them to get driver's license, food stamp, rent subsidies, and so forth.
Yeah, it is a nation of immigrants, but you know what the big difference is?
No, wait, let me finish.
No, let me finish. The big difference is, years ago, people came to this country because they wanted so much to be Americans. And when they got here, they did what they could to be Americans. But we get too many immigrants that come here now who don't want to speak English, who don't want to learn to read or write English, who don't want to be Americans, and it does cause problems for everybody.
Well, very good, but I wanted to say this is a nation of citizens to counter a nation of immigrants. We're citizens. We can vote as citizens. They want the illegals to vote. And the next thing is when I heard a discussion of that bell curve, right?
The bell curve, yes.
And a black fellow called in. Said, what's the difference with this HQ business? All people, all human beings, they found out, the anthropologists found out, all human life is traced to Africa. We're all descended from Africans. I said, that made me mad as hell, because all the white people are created in the image of God. If you look at Jesus, he's a white person.
Well, we can't really tell.
No, he's a white person.
He could have been black. You never know.
All the other ones were...
He could have been black. It's possible.
All the other people came from the route of anthropology, from the slime, from the... And not in, what do you call it, evolution.
You know what's funny? He thinks he's doing well here with this explanation.
White people are created in the image of God.
He thinks all of New York is listening
Happy New
intently
Year,
to him saying, boy, this makes
1995,
sense.
Mark.
Huh?
Happy New Year.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks for calling. He really believes people have pulled over the side of the road just saying, wow, he's right. Well, let's say hello to Mark in Canada. Mark, you're on WABC.
Hi there. I wanted to ask you about your opinion on tourists.
Yes.
I heard you speaking before saying how annoying they are this time of year.
Yes.
I got to say, I live in a town which is predominantly French-speaking, in Montreal.
Yeah.
And this weekend, just for instance, is packed with American tourists from your state, from Boston.
Oh, well, listen, I mean, I've been around the world, and there's nothing more annoying than American tourists in other places.
Well, no, this is not what I'm saying.
Oh.
I'm telling you, man, these people are fantastic, very courteous. I was standing in a restaurant today.
Yeah, but that's different. You live in Montreal. You're thrilled to see anybody.
Oh,
You can't believe
come on.
anybody would come there.
Oh, listen.
Do you think it's
Great
cold
town.
here? This is the tropics compared to Montreal.
Yeah, well, no crime, man. It's a very sedate society.
Well, what are you going to do up there? There's nothing to steal.
I guess I just can't understand you Americans sometimes.
Well, no. It's just, people come up to Montreal. You see, it's different. In Montreal, when a tourist comes, they got a map. There's only about 4 places to visit. There's like 5 tourists.
Obviously, man, for someone who's traveled the world, you haven't been to Montreal.
I've been to Montreal many times. It's a beautiful city.
But
if you happen to have
honestly,
about 8 parkas and a dog sled.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's
I'm
a
not gonna
really...
argue with you on the climactic condition.
Montreal is a beautiful city. Your summer is the first week of July, right?
Yeah, and it ends first week of August. But anyways, honestly...
And they speak the funniest language up there. I don't even know what they speak. French people can't even understand you up there. It's like a Canadian version of French.
Yeah, but it works.
No, it's a great city.
Well, listen,
Unless you want to go outside, then forget it. It's freezing.
Yeah, but I guarantee you, we're not annoyed by you.
No,
Come
Canada
on.
is a wonderful country. It's someone once called Canada America Light. It's like a nice version of America where people are still polite and friendly. And what do you do up there in Canada?
Actually, I work for a radio station in Montreal.
No kidding. Which one?
CJAD.
Oh, Biggie.
Yeah.
What kind of station is it?
It's news talk.
Is there anything to talk about up there?
Oh, lots of things. Politics happens.
You
up
think
here,
this
too.
is a hot talk station? You should hear that one. It's cold out, huh?
Well, listen, I'm not going to convince you on that argument.
Then the next call is, I'd like to talk about that last caller who said it's cold out.
Listen, it was nice talking to you.
Well, all right. Well, what's your name, Mark?
Yeah.
Are you on the radio up there?
Yes, I am.
And when can you be heard?
I can be heard. I'm on a swing shift here, so I'm all over the place. I'm primarily based out of Ottawa, which is our capital. And I cover mostly Parliament for this station, for a station in Toronto, CFRB.
Oh, another biggie.
Yeah. Listen, it was good talking to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Bye.
Oh, Canada's a beautiful country. From a distance. Mary in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mary.
You were saying at the Massachusetts abortion clinic, you're saying now here's a case for the death penalty?
Yes.
Well, what's unusual about this case, I heard the reporter saying that it was a dark-complexioned man. Normally, the abortion killings are done by white men.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Florida, Paul Hill, if you recall, he killed 2 people.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, I think he received the death penalty for that, but it will be highly unusual for him to be executed for that because they have never executed somebody for killing somebody that was going to abortion because they...
Well, you understand that we don't use the death penalty at all. People always point to all the states that have the death penalty and claim, well, crime hasn't gone down. We don't use the death penalty now. Do you know that 97% of all people sentenced to death are not executed? 97%.
Right, I know that, but certain states like Florida does execute a number of people, Texas does, but it would be very unusual for them to do it in an abortion case because they can abortion people that are supposed
No, I understand what
to
you're saying. To me, it's not even an abortion case. It's a case of just a lunatic, just a deranged lunatic.
Well, no, it will be an abortion case because it's a highly emotional issue, and pro-life people will always say that the abortion people are the first killers, that they had to kill because the abortion people killed.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, this will be...
On the surface, it appears to be somebody so passionate against abortion.
Right.
But
Well,
really, we're just talking about a deranged lunatic.
Right, but it would set a precedent if, like, Paul Hill in Florida would be executed for his crime.
Well, he has been sentenced to death. But anyway, I thank you for calling.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Very good, Paul.
Listen, I'm the president of the I Hate Eater Gourmet fan club. You know me, right?
No, but...
But you do. Anyway, I got the best
You
and the
say
worst.
so.
Okay?
Huh?
All right, I got the best and the worst for you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I got the best pizza of 1994 is Joe's on the corner of Bleecker and Carmine in the Village.
That's debatable.
Okay, and you got to get the square pizza. It's the best. Now, I got the worst. It's a 40-way tie. Ray's Pizza.
Well, nobody knows what you mean when you say Ray's Pizza. There's the original Ray's. There's the famous
It's a
Ray's.
40-way tie.
There's the original famous Ray's. There's Ray Berry's Pizza. I guess the best Ray's is still the one on 6th Avenue and 11th Street.
Oh, yeah, it's really good, huh?
Although it's not what it used to be either.
Listen, I got one more thing to say. I know you're a friend of Steve Allen. Have you seen his new movie?
Which movie?
It's a movie with him and the Siamese twin artists. It's called Schmock Schmock.
I was going to give you a rim shot, but I don't even think that's worth it.
All right, listen, Mark.
Hey, Steve Allen will be with us tomorrow.
I love Steve Allen.
Yeah, well, he'll be on the show with us tomorrow about 12:30.
All right, and just one more thing.
Yes.
No politics. Enough politics. Leave it up to them. You're
Well, I noticed
guy.
last Friday night and tonight, maybe because it's so close to a holiday, people have kept the conversation light. But I think that's just because of the holiday spirit here. Paul, thanks for calling.
Really calling about your conversation with the first caller you had today. And I think that the reason you were having difficulty with him was that you put a presumptive in the question, much the same as that old question about have you stopped beating your wife. There was no way that he could answer the question without agreeing with you. I think the reality is that for some reason people are unable to see the following scenario. Hillary Clinton in her office, somebody comes in and says Vince Foster has committed suicide. She's got people there. She's not by herself. Maybe even Bernie Nussbaum, who was the counsel at the time. Who knows who else was there? But someone says, not necessarily Hillary Clinton.
Well, first of all, we don't know that anyone was in the office with her, and it's very possible.
Nor do we know that they weren't.
Yeah, so let's not even get into that.
Yeah, but wait a second. You had the scenario that how could she do this? And I'm saying there's another possible scenario. Other people in the office, somebody says, you know, Vince had a lot of private papers that have nothing to do with the country, the government, whatever. It's not in the public domain. I really think we ought to get that out of there because once it's in there, it'll become public. Didn't have to be Hillary's suggestion. Could have been anybody's.
Well, I think we'll probably find out that it was Hillary's suggestion. But the question is, out of all the private personal files that...
But that wasn't the only one taken out. That's where I think there's another perhaps mistake in your questioning of the first guy. That was not the only file taken out of that
I
office.
understand, but the question is...
But the way you phrased the question, you said, why would she say, get that specific one? What was so important in there? All of that's presumptive on your part.
Yeah, and it's a pretty good presumption that why would you go to an old file from 10 years ago? First of all, you have to realize what a sleazy business that Whitewater thing was.
We don't know that yet.
No, I'm talking about just the basic idea of it.
Well, I think it falls much into the same category as SLCs, as many other things.
No, I'll tell you the difference.
You know,
I have never... we now know... I mean, you have to be so naive to not realize what a sleazy place Arkansas was, and it was just run by a cabal of bankers and lawyers, and you can imagine the corruption that must have taken place in Arkansas. And the question is...
The same kind of guys that were in the savings and loan debacle?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, that took place where? It took place in California, it took place in Colorado, took place in
Listen,
Texas enormously.
Irv, I'm not even talking to you right now because I know there's no arguing with you. I'm talking to the audience right now. So if you could just step aside for a minute, Irv. I'm just saying, there's no other state in the world where you could imagine a governor and his wife getting involved with a real estate developer and building vacation homes while in office. This will give you a clue as to how backwoods sleazy Arkansas was. This is the atmosphere that Bill and Hillary come from. Can you imagine if Mario and Matilda Cuomo announced they're going into business with Donald Trump while he's in office?
It's a one-way conversation?
Yeah, it is. While he's in office, Cuomo and his wife are going to build vacation homes with Donald Trump somewhere. There'd be an uproar if that happened. All right, now you can interrupt, Irv.
Okay, thank you. One of the things I have to give you credit for, over the years you have developed some of the finest comeback answers that basically make the other person sound as if A, they're stupid or whatever.
It
really hasn't happened.
There's nothing stupid about you. I think for whatever reason you're a big supporter of Hillary and Bill Clinton.
No, I'm not. That's not the point. That's not the point I was trying to make.
I don't mean to cut you off.
You were badgering the first guy for no reason, and you were wrong.
I don't mean to cut you off because we have to take a break here. But again, just see if you can deal with that question for a second. Don't you think that's a pretty sleazy atmosphere where the governor and his wife can get involved with a private real estate developer and build vacation homes? Can you imagine any state that sleazy?
Would have said, hey, it was a pretty good investment, and boy, they made some good decisions, etc. It happens to have turned out negative.
Our new governor, George Pataki, is pretty friendly with Abe Hirschfeld, the builder. And nobody could be dopier than Abe Hirschfeld. What would you think if after taking office, Pataki announces that he's going to be building some vacation homes with Hirschfeld?
I don't know put it this way, I think a governor is allowed to invest, okay?
Well, why?
The fact that he is serving in a public position doesn't mean that he's not allowed to buy T-bills, that he's not allowed to buy stock. He may have it in a
well, if it looks wrong,
there's all kinds of things.
If it looks wrong for Gingrich to accept money for a book, imagine how wrong it looks for a governor to be building vacation homes.
One second. Big difference between the Newt Gingrich situation and the ones that you're trying to compare it to.
Well,
Newt Gingrich was trying to create an image. And
the only difference...
It really has nothing to do with you and me. The reality is people like Bob Dole, who have a much greater...
I have to stop you because we have to take a break. Anyway...
Hi, Mark.
Yes, Russell?
I'd like to give you my choice for the 2 idiots of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Rupert Murdoch, for giving $4.5 million to Newt Gingrich.
Well, first of all, he didn't do it, but...
Who was it?
There's an editor there that works for him, very smart woman. Now, let's point out that this company is in the publishing business, and that any time you put out a book by a very popular conservative, you make a fortune. Rush Limbaugh's book made zillions of dollars. So why would you declare somebody who made a very, very smart business move an idiot?
If you've reviewed some of these autobiographies of politicians, and not many have been huge successes. And that's a tremendous amount up front.
You're dead wrong. Margaret Thatcher's book, which no one expected to do that well in this country, a huge success. Reagan's book, a huge bestseller. Nixon in his later years had 8 bestsellers. Dan Quayle's book, nobody thought that would do that well. You know that Dan Quayle has made $4.5 million off his book. It's in its 6th printing already. A huge success. Rush Limbaugh's 2 books have set every publishing record you could set.
Okay, then I'll have to give the number 1 idiot to Newt Gingrich for not taking the $4.5 million. Is that acceptable?
Well, I don't know what was wrong about it. It just looked wrong to accept the money. But you got to give this guy credit. He put his money where his mouth is.
I wonder what the same people who found fault with it would have done in the same situation.
It's a very tough thing to give back $4.5 million.
I should have had the opportunity.
Anyway,
for you.
Anyway, Russell, thanks for calling. Let's say hello to Danny from Brooklyn.
How you doing, Mark?
Very good, Danny.
You read David Hinckley's column in the news, the radio column every day, don't you?
Yeah, David Hinckley's a very good writer. He writes for the Daily News.
He does music.
Not just on radio, but an excellent music writer.
Music writer, right. Let me ask you a question, if you notice what I noticed. How he kisses up the LIB every day. LIB radio station. Did you notice it?
No, I haven't noticed that.
Every day he's always praising that station. And to top it off, I happened to put it on this week, that station. And you know that station hates white people. They're praising David Hinckley, which is very rare for them to do, you know?
Well, you certainly can't defend WLIB, although I can defend David Hinckley because I do know him. He's a very, very, very nice guy.
Well, like I said to you, I happened to put it on this week.
If you met David Hinckley, you know this guy hates nobody. He's a very, very gentle, nice sort of guy.
Well, I'll tell you one guy who hates him, Jay Black. You know Jay Black from Jay Black and the Americans?
Jay and the Americans, sure, I remember them.
He don't like David Hinckley. You know why? David Hinckley wrote a thing about music in New York City and wrote like a half a line on Jay Black. And they were a little peeved about it because they had like top 20 hits in New York City.
Yeah, but you got to remember there are thousands of people who were huge, huge, monstrous successes 30 years ago.
Right.
And 30 years later, when they're not so successful, they're always mad that they didn't get this and they didn't get enough attention here. And
Jay Black's point was he gave a lot of space to people that had like maybe 3 or 4 records. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm sure Jay Black has plenty of people he hates. I'm sure there's maybe a lot of things he's upset about. But what does that have to do with David Hinckley?
Well,
you can't write a daily newspaper column and not have plenty of people mad at you.
I know what you're saying.
Thanks for calling. Let's say hello to Tony in Connecticut.
Hi. You were talking about the Whitewater thing, and I just wanted to make the point that the thing that wasn't so bad about it was that it wasn't bad that they were making a profit. What was bad was the way they were selling the properties and holding the mortgages.
But the basic idea, how could you let a governor and his wife get involved in a private business with a real estate developer?
Well, I'm sure there are plenty of things going on where it's a perfectly legitimate investment. But what they were doing was, they were selling these mortgages out on pieces of property and the people wouldn't take ownership until they had paid the whole thing off entirely.
I'm sure.
And if they missed one payment, they lost everything that they had paid for.
I'm sure it was sleazy from top to bottom. You just take one look at their partner; it just smells bad. But
wait? But then on the other side, Bill Clinton's his partnership, his own personal thing. Whenever he couldn't make the payment on his partnership part, the other guy would cover for him.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So on both sides.
I'm sure it's just sleazy top to bottom. Let's say hello to Edith in New Jersey. Edith, you're on WABC.
Hi. I grew up in Philadelphia. And if the only thing, they took orphans in Stephen Girard College. I have not heard anyone call about Stephen Girard College. Now, it had a different name, but it was really an orphanage.
What's your point, Edith?
I just want to know about the boys that grew up in Stephen Girard College. I'd like some of those boys to call up and tell you how successful they have been.
Well, all right. Since the whole orphanage controversy, a number of writers who were kids who grew up in orphanages have written about it, and some have written that it was a horrible experience and that they were abused left and right, and there are other columnists who've written that it was a terrific experience and a fine way to be brought up. So, you can't really conclude anything from the people that have written about it. Bill from Marlborough, hello.
Hi, Mark. First, let me say that a Saturday away from Lynn Samuels is like a month in the country, thank God. But
wait a minute, Bill. You don't mean that.
Let me
you don't mean that. You listen to Lynn every Saturday.
No, I don't. The
Yes,
only
you
reason
do.
I listen to it, it's like when you have a bad tooth and you're constantly nagging at it with the hope that it'll go away or something. But that is what I called you.
People like you can't simply face the truth, which is that you don't agree with Lynn. You hate some of the things she says.
Oh, contraire. From time to time, I do agree with her.
But you enjoy the show, and she's interesting and entertaining as a
interesting,
host.
yes. Entertaining, I'm not so certain. In any event, you were speaking before of conspiracy theories and how they floated. I'm an IRS retiree, and many years ago, back in the 70s, I was detailed to the House Committee on the House Ethics Committee, and we were investigating, Koreagate at the time. It was a minor investigation. There were conspiracy theories that floated that you wouldn't believe, like they were linking people to the burning of the Reichstag, and it was just incredible. And not from the nut job, but from well-respected reporters. I couldn't believe it, that these people, I know they didn't believe it, but they figured to take a shot at it, and what the hell, maybe it's going to sell a lot of papers, and maybe I'll get my name, and, it's going to look good. Incredible. There were people that...
Well, you heard the Sam Donaldson story I told.
Yes, I did.
But John Hinckley, I would believe anything when it comes to those conspiracy people. It's like a disease.
Hey, good afternoon. Hey, if anybody doesn't know by now that Bill and Hillary were part of the Southern Good Old Boy Network, and they are really living in a fantasy world. But I wanted to call you about this orphanage issue. This sort of reminds me of when Dan Quayle was tarred and feathered about the so-called Murphy Brown incident about women, single women having babies without being able to support them. And then, of course, after he left office, people even, including The Atlantic, wrote, well, maybe he was right about the country, 30% of the country's illegitimate birth rate being very dangerous for the society at large. And I'd like to add one more thing that I'd like to see as far as welfare reform. I think that any woman that brings a child into the world, first of all, I think she's a woman denying a father to her child. I think it's a tragic thing. I think men should be very angry about having fatherhood taken away from them.
Well, in most of these cases, though, the woman denying fatherhood, it's the father abandoning the woman.
Well, also, I would say that, look, at 16 years old, let's say, you can't expect one of these kids to support a child, but why not 8 years later, when that guy's 24 years old, why isn't part of his salary garnished to take care of the kid for the next, what would be 10 years, until he reaches 18?
Well, what about
I think they should forcefully, the woman should be made to ID the father, and the father...
Well, that's not the problem. That's not the problem, Lou. The problem is in many cases you can't find the father, or in many cases the father has no salary to garnish.
Well, not at 16, but I'm saying 8 years later, I'm saying that...
Again, the father in many cases has no salary to garnish, and there are a number of cases where the father has 10 different kids and still no salary to garnish. But anyway, thanks for calling, Lou. Let's say hello to Rachel in Nutley.
Hello?
Yes, Rachel.
Hi, I've been watching the news, as everyone has, about the shootings yesterday in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if you know, or if anyone's heard, whether there's a death penalty in Massachusetts now that they know who they're looking for.
I don't know. I believe there is a death penalty in Massachusetts. But, what's the difference? Even if people are sentenced to death now, we never use the death penalty.
Oh, what do you think about Florida? Don't you think that Paul Hill's going to be executed?
Nobody's ever executed.
In Florida, they are.
97% of all people sentenced to death have not been executed.
Well,
The appeals process can take 8 years, 10 years.
I generally tend to be against the death penalty, but it's a little bit satisfying to see that it's in place in some states when things like this happen.
It'd be a lot more satisfying if it were used, though.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Thanks for calling. Let's say hello to Brian in Queens.
Hi, Mark.
Oh, it's that Brian.
Yes, it's this Brian.
Brian used to call me every day on the radio when he was 16 years old.
How you doing, Mark?
How old are you now, Brian?
Oh, I'm 19.
19. Boy, time flies.
Yeah.
Boy, you know you're getting old when Brian is not. You know how you know time is really flying? You know how you know you're really getting old when you look and on television you see Dick Clark actually looks old. Even Dick Clark doesn't look young anymore.
Mark, I got a question for you.
Yes.
What's your? Do you have any predictions for the upcoming year with the Republicans having so much power at the Senate and House? What do you think is going to happen?
Predictions for the coming year. I predict that Bill and Hillary Clinton will be dragged from the White House in handcuffs.
Okay.
Sent to jail for a good 10 years. I believe their Whitewater shenanigans will finally come out.
Uh-huh.
I believe that, let's see, what else do I believe in? I believe that the Republicans in Congress will get done half of what they claim they will. Half. Well, half of... Hey, listen, that's a lot to hope for. Well, listen, some people don't think they'll do anything.
Okay.
I predict that Roseanne Barr will be married another couple of times in 1994.
You think so?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
You know, I remember she used to come on the show a lot, and I used to call her Roseanne Barr, and then one day she married this Tom Arnold.
Right.
Well, she went nuts about being called Roseanne Arnold. You had to call her Roseanne Arnold. And I had been calling her Roseanne Barr for so long that I slipped one day.
Uh-huh.
And I said, Roseanne Barr is with us. Well, she went berserk. She said, it's Arnold! And she started screaming. I thought you were going to choke me to death. So I always made sure to call her Roseanne Arnold again. Well, now it's at the point, if you called her Roseanne Arnold, she'd punch you.
Really?
Shows you how times change.
Uh-huh.
Well, anyway, Brian, how will you be celebrating New Year's Eve?
Oh, well, just at home with the family and everything, you know.
It's a horrible holiday. I wish they would just eliminate the whole idea. Everybody feels pressured to do something. For a week, people keep saying, what are you going to be doing New Year's Eve? And you have to make up some big story when actually you don't want to do anything.
Uh-huh.
It's just an excuse for nightclubs and restaurants to rob everybody blind.
And they do it.
Imagine if you created a holiday whose only purpose was that a nightclub or restaurant could mark the prices up 10,000% for no particular reason. You know, seriously, do you know the busiest day of the year in restaurants?
What's the busiest day?
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day?
Mother's Day is the single busiest day. You can't get a reservation in any restaurant in New York on Mother's Day. But do they mark up the prices for it? No.
Wow.
Just New Year's Eve. It's become an acceptable practice. If it normally would cost you $50, New Year's Eve, it's $700. Anyway, thanks for calling, Brian. Have a great holiday. This is Mark Simone here for Lynn Samuels. We'll take a little break, and then we'll take some more calls a little later this hour. But when we come back after this, we will talk to a living legend. One of the great names in the history of entertainment will be with us next. Right after this, we'll talk to Steve Allen on 77 WABC. This is Mark Simone. I don't believe it. It's unbelievable. We may not have Steve Allen. So we'll get back to the phones in a second. 212-563-WABC is the number. 212-563-WABC. In New Jersey, 201-489-WABC. In Connecticut, 203-862-WABC. I'll tell you why I don't believe it. Steve Allen is the most reliable human being on the face of the earth. But apparently, there was a little mix-up somewhere along the way. I haven't talked to him in a couple of weeks, and it was weeks and weeks ago, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, I guess 3 weeks ago, that we arranged to have Steve on today. And I used to work with him for a couple of years. We used to do a radio show together every day, and I know Steve quite well, and I can tell you he is the most reliable man on the face of the earth. So that's why you don't have to confirm anything with him. So, and he has maybe 9 secretaries who do nothing but sit there all day and keep track of this stuff. And one of them said, 12:30 on December 31st, and they said he'll be at this number, and you never have to reconfirm anything with Steve Allen. It's the most amazing thing in the world. So what happened is apparently he's at a rehearsal right now for a show he's doing, and this must have been scheduled, and somewhere in the meantime, it was scheduled, and so either we'll find him a little later in the show, or if not, Maybe I'll be here next Friday night. Maybe next Friday night we'll have mine. I promised you Steve Allen, I'll get you Steve Allen. But he is the world's most reliable human being. It's unbelievable. For instance, if you were to just have dinner with Steve Allen, normally a guy would call you up and say, let's have dinner tomorrow night. You'd get a call 6 months in advance from a secretary. Then you'd get a letter confirming it. Then you'd get another secretary calling you. Then you'd get 2 more letters. Then you'd get another confirmation. Then you'd get a mailgram and then a telegram. And then when you'd get to the restaurant, though, you'd say, did he make a reservation? And the restaurant owner would say, look at this. Look at the mail I got over this. 5,000 letters come pouring in to set this up. So obviously somebody's wires got crossed here. So we'll get back to the phones. The number is 212-563-WABC. What were we talking about? Oh, that Hillary Clinton. And let's see. People had been arguing about the death penalty. Apparently, since there's no way of stopping it, it will be law as soon as George Pataki takes office. All of these death penalty opponents are now fighting for, as I read you before in this story, fairness in the death penalty. It's a big story in today's New York Times. Fairness in the death penalty. They're worried about fairness in the death penalty. But none of these people ever formed a group and went out and fought for the fairness of the victims as they're getting murdered and robbed and killed and raped. Fairness in the death penalty. And then the other cause that they were worried about was racial discrimination in the death penalty. If you study the statistics, apparently there is a little racial discrimination in that the percentage of blacks who are executed is much lower than the percentage of blacks actually committing the crimes, whereas the percentage of whites executed is far greater than the percentage of whites committing the murders in this country. And as I said before, if you really take a look at the statistics, the death penalty, although it's in effect in I think something like 35 states, is almost never used. 97% of the people sentenced to death have not been executed. They can sit on death row forever. Anyway, let's go back to the phones. 212-563-WABC is the number. 212-563-WABC. And in New Jersey, 201-489-WABC. And in Connecticut, 203-862-WABC. Peter in Long Island, hello.
Mark, how are you?
Very good.
Good. I've been listening to you since you started the program this morning, and you were talking about the Whitewater, and without using the word, I guess, corruption or whatever word you want to use. And I'm not disagreeing with you because, as far as I'm concerned, we'll never see honest politicians in any form of office anyway. But
I think we've seen plenty of honest politicians.
No, not as far. Not when it comes to government. But the point I wanted to make was, you live in, I don't know, I take it you live in New York, the most corrupt capital of the world. Now, not to go off the subject, but...
What are you talking about, New York?
Oh, I mean, the police department in New York...
Oh, you're crazy.
Oh, come... how come... Let me ask you a question. How come we never see where the money from the drug deals go to and the drugs? Why do we not see... We can see the phony...
Listen, there may be a lot of corruption in New York, but if you think this is the most corrupt city in America, you haven't been around much.
Well, where would you say would be worse?
Little Rock, Arkansas, for one. Washington, D.C., for another. Detroit, Michigan, for another.
But wait a minute. Per capita amount of people, would you say Arkansas is worse than New York?
From what I've seen of Little Rock, Arkansas, it's got to be one of the most corrupt states, one of the most corrupt towns in America.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Arkansas. I mean, there's not that much there to offer. And as far as Hillary Clinton goes with whatever she did in the stock market, I make my living in the market. The stock market is the most corrupt thing that we've got going in New York. I mean, there is nothing honest about the stock market.
Yes, there is.
I've been in the...
Well, all right, that's it. It's official. There's nothing honest about the stock market. Anybody that's ever bought a stock, you're all under arrest.
Now,
that's it. Everybody up against...
In the market 15 years.
Peter, it's possible that you might be able to make a decent point, but not with your wild exaggerations. You destroy all your credibility with those exaggerations.
What it is? It's hard to face reality.
I know. That's what I'm trying to tell you, Peter. No, but when you come back down to earth and calm down, maybe you'll be able to make a credible case there. Let's say hello to Norman in his car somewhere.
Yes, somewhere. I live in New Jersey. We have the death penalty, but we don't use it. And I think, whether you believe it or not, if you're going to have it, use it. we have these stupid, extra little mini trials with these convicted people. Some of them have killed 4 or 5 people. To see if they qualify for the death penalty. Now, this is after that we've already decided we're going to have the death penalty. And they seem to have to prove that, just killing somebody is not bad enough, but you have to kind of prove that you wanted to kill this person 25 years ago and planned it. Dead is dead. I don't see the difference between somebody who spontaneously kills somebody as opposed to planning it, why that person should not get the death penalty. I think these grown judges in New Jersey are crazy.
It's not just the judges. The whole system is crazy in that you can appeal a death sentence for 8 to 10 years. That whole process has to be speeded up.
Yes, that is so. But somebody has killed 3 or 4 people just to figure out whether he should get the death penalty because the circumstances, dead is dead. A loved one is a loved one. I don't know what we do anymore.
Well, there are different types of murders, though. But the process has to be speeded up. It should take no more than a year or at the most 2 years for appeals for a death sentence. Thanks for calling. Let's say hello to Ann in New Hyde Park.
Yes, hi. I'm referring to a previous caller talking about Newt Gingrich and his book deal.
Uh-huh.
And I basically think that I would rather have him accept the book deal than have him vote himself another pay raise or enter into some sort of sleazy Whitewater type deal. I think that it's not a bad thing. I'd rather not pay for him. I'd rather he get the money from somewhere else than taxpayers have to pay. So I don't think that it's a bad idea. And maybe, if he gets the $4.5 million, he'll actually give some money to his wife and his children whom he apparently divorced and kept saying that he has no money to support.
Well, that we don't know. You don't want to suddenly become the National Enquirer, do you?
No, well, no, but I've seen it in many sources, so...
Yeah, but for instance, that story about him supposedly bringing divorce papers into his wife's sickbed and asking her to sign it, there's not a shred of evidence that it ever happened. And every paper in the world printed that as if that were a true story. Even the New York Times printed that, as if they knew that to be fact. There's no proof anywhere that ever took place, and even Gingrich's wife will not confirm that story.
Well...
So there's not a shred of evidence that it ever happened, but everybody repeats it as if we know that happened.
Either way, I would rather him have accepted the book deal than vote himself a pay raise.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's a lot. I could see a politician taking money to write a book, but a politician, a governor in office, trying to put together a deal to build vacation homes with some shady-looking developer. I mean, at least writing a book is some sort of a noble profession, but a politician making money profiting from real estate developments while in office. We'll take a break. We'll continue the hunt for Steve Allen.
On Dateline, about a month ago, they had the minister, Newt Gingrich's minister, who was a very good friend of his also. And he himself said, the minister, right on Dateline, that Newt Gingrich is an amoral man, that he will go to any extreme to achieve his ends. Now, this is his own minister.
Well, we don't know that it's his own minister.
Yes.
No, no, we don't. Remember, this is the same show that faked a truck blowing up.
Oh, so, you're now really you're splitting hairs.
No, I'm not splitting hairs. I'm saying there are plenty of people that tell you how wonderful Newt Gingrich is, and there are plenty of people that tell you he's awful. And it proves nothing. But thanks for calling. Let's say hello to John in Staten Island.
How you doing, Mark? I just want to make the point that by
anytime we see John from Staten Island, everybody gets nervous. But apparently you're not that John from Staten Island.
No, I'm not. I know the screener asked me the same question. Anyway, I don't even think I sound like him. But
No, you don't. So you're not that John from Staten Island. In other words, I can sit back in the chair and relax when you talk.
Yeah, I'm unfortunate not to be that eloquent. Anyway, I want to make the point that by Newt not taking this $4.5 million book deal, that he's going to defer paying income taxes on that money till probably after he votes himself an income tax decrease for the whole country and himself. So it's a pretty smart move on his part. What do you think about that?
I think that's ridiculous. I think if you were suddenly handed $4.5 million, you'd be so thrilled to have it, you wouldn't worry about what the income tax on $4.5 million would still leave you with a few million.
Oh, sure. I certainly agree with that, and I understand that, $4 million...
But be honest, not that you can because it's so hypothetical, who could imagine, but if you were suddenly handed $4.5 million and it made you look a little funny, just on principle, would you hand the money back? It's hard to be real.
I don't know if I could do that. But he's going to end up probably with more money, and he's probably going to be...
Yeah, you keep saying probably. He could end up with nothing.
Yes, he could.
You know, sometimes you take that film we just talked about, Ready to Wear. That was the most talked about, promoted film. In fact, so much so that when it came out, everybody was tired of hearing about it and it bombed.
Yeah, the track record of conservative books, as you point out earlier, is incredible.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's very possible that this book could bomb, that people are just tired of it, or that there's nothing in this book that they haven't already heard. It's possible that he could make nothing now off this book.
That's true. Well, I just want to conclude by
What he's
saying...
basically done is taken that $4.5 million and, like, it's like as if you went into a casino and just threw it down on a number on a roulette wheel.
He did show an incredible act of good faith, and I think it shows his confidence in that he and his ability to produce.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks for calling. Let's say hello to Ms. Jones in Queens.
Hello.
Is that what that says, Ms. Jones?
That's right, Mark. How are you?
Very good.
You know, I don't like your attitude this morning about this particular character.
Who?
The the guy didn't take the money, want to put the kids away in a home. You're taking up for him. What is so terrible that you have to take up for him?
Who?
Who? Mark, you know who I'm speaking about.
I want to see if you even know the man's name.
Newt, whatever his name is.
What's his last name? What's his last name?
It's a Southern guy. You sound stupid taking up for this Southern nut.
You don't even know the name of the...
Tell you something. He didn't take care of his family.
You don't even know the name of the Speaker of the House, and I sound stupid?
Get the hell up. You're really stupid. I'm surprised at your behavior.
Why'd you cut her off? I was enjoying it.
Glad when Lynn come back.
All
You're
right.
sick.
All right.
Taking up for such a crazy fool. He's a stupid man.
All right. You know what's really embarrassing? That was my mother. I don't know why she calls me here. No, well, of course that wasn't. But anyway, Ms. Jones, thank you for your call. Isn't it amazing that there are people on this earth who don't know the name of the Speaker of the House? I mean, there has been no name that's been more prominently featured in the news in the last month. So when you run into people who can't pronounce it or don't even know it, it's amazing. Have a wonderful New Year's.
Arbitron's #1 AM radio station in New York, Long Island, and the USA.